Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing a couple of projects which feature Altenew's brand new Shimmer Relief Paste, and I'm going to show you a couple of ways that you can use them along with some new products from Altenew. But before we get into that, I just wanted to let you know that this video is part of a video hop here on YouTube celebrating this brand new February 2025 release from Altenew. So these brand new Shimmer Relief Pastes are really beautiful. They come in 7 different colors. It's a pretty large tub of this product. And the cool thing about this is that you can really put this onto a project and add a lot of dimension, or you can put it on in a very thin and light layer just to give a little bit of shine to your projects. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to swatch each of these colors for you so that you can really see them in action. And one of the things that I noticed about these Shimmer Relief Pastes is that they are really true to their color even when they dry back. So what you kind of see in the container when you open it is what you end up with in the end on your finished project. Now I'm going to swatch each of these colors on both black cardstock and white cardstock, and you can see they are so smooth. I mixed this one up. This is antique silver. You don't really need to mix them up. They are kind of this lightweight. They're not really moussey, but they're just very smooth. That's what I could say about them. This is the pearl color, and I love this. I'm going to show you a fun way to use this a little bit later before we get into the project. But this is, just like it sounds, a really beautiful pearly white color, and you can see all that shimmer. And as I mentioned, these really do dry very true to the color. They maintain all of that shimmer, and they even have that glossy finish, like almost as if they're still a little wet. So this is smoky quartz, and now we're moving into brushed pyrite, and this might be one of my absolute favorites. It's kind of this champagne gold, and I think you could really tint this one. I'm going to show you how to tint that pearl in just a moment, but I think you could add a little tint to this one too because it's light enough. Next up is the rose gold color, and I absolutely love this one as well. It's in my top 3 for sure. It's not too pink, it's not too coppery, it's just a really beautiful rose gold color. The other thing that I really love about these new Shimmer Relief Pastes from Altenew, this is enchanted gold, by the way, is that they are opaque on this black cardstock. Now, if you smear them out and you do a really light layer, you're going to see some of that black cardstock through. But if you do them a little thicker, you put them on a little heavier, they are very opaque. So you could use these on a colored cardstock as well. This is the burnished platinum, and that finishes off the swatching of the 7 different ones. Now I'm using the brand new Bubblegum Dreams Fresh Dye inks, and I'm just smearing it on a Teflon craft mat and bringing in a little bit of the Pearl Shimmer Relief Paste. I'm going to mix that ink with this Pearl Shimmer Paste, and look, you can create these beautiful custom colored shimmery pastes to use on your projects. And I'm smearing it all onto some white cardstock here, but I'm going to go back and lift some of that and put it on the black cardstock and show you that this color will show up on black and colored cardstocks as well. So here they are when they're all dry. You can see they still have that glossy finish. There's a lot of shimmer. They dry with some dimension if you put them on with dimension, but these are just a really fun way to add some shine to your projects, and I can't wait to experiment with them more over time. Today, I'm going to show you a couple of projects and a couple of different ways you can use them with some other Altenew products that are brand new for the month of February 2025. We're going to use them through stencils, which is a way that you would think of normally using Shimmer Relief Paste, but don't let your imagination stop there. So for the first card project, I'm using the brand new Garden Whispers Craft Your Life kit. It has a beautiful large 6x8 stamp set, a coordinating die set, stencils, as well as an embossing folder, a 3D embossing folder. And I'm starting with this large floral image, and I'm going to use my Stamp Wheel 2.0, and I'm going to stamp this into the lower left-hand corner of this cardstock panel. So I'm just placing it onto the panel where I want it. I'm using the flip plate to pick up the stamp, and then I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to ink it up with the Obsidian pigment ink from Altenew. This is a gorgeous black pigment ink, but keep in mind it is a pigment ink, so I will heat set it before I move on to the next portion of my project. Now for this card project, I thought it would be fun to use these Shimmer Relief Pastes in part of the layering stencils. So this stamp set has a layering stencil set that adds color to all these beautiful images. And I thought it would be fun to use these shimmer pastes on one of those layers to add a little bit of dimension and of course a lot of shine to this image. So I've stamped it now onto this white cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and pick it up off of that sticky mat of my Stamp Wheel 2.0 that's holding my cardstock in place. And then I'm going to heat set this before I move on to the next portion because I'm going to be doing some ink blending and I don't want to smear these beautiful crisp black lines that the stamp has created. So once I have that heat set, I'm going to place this back into my Stamp Wheel 2.0 because I'm using that sticky mat to hold not only my paper, but my stencils in place as I move throughout the stenciling process. Included in the stamp set, you're going to find this layering guide as well as a couple of pieces of inspiration for how to use this stamp set. And I have that kind of off to the side to help guide me as I do my stenciling. And for all of the floral images today, I'm using the brand new Bubblegum Dreams Fresh Dye inks. I love this magenta color. It is so beautiful. And so I'm starting out with that little bud at the top, and then I will reposition my stencil, and I'm coming in with this is, I believe, baby pink. And I'm stenciling that outer like petal of that little bud there. Now I'm going to reposition this layering stencil set, and I'm going to speed this up just a little bit so that we can kind of get through the process because I really want to show you using these stencil relief pastes through the layering stencils. Now for the floral images of this stamp, I used 3 of the 4 colors in the new Bubblegum Dreams Fresh Dye ink family. I used magenta, jazzberry, and baby pink. And you're gonna see me kind of move and reposition my stencils a few times. That's because I went back and forth kind of adding more color. Once I had done my initial stenciling, I felt like I really wanted to intensify certain areas. So I went back and replaced that stencil and added a little bit more shading, a little bit more color to certain areas. Now I'm using the magenta for my shadows on the baby pink portion, and I'm using the jazzberry for the shadows on the magenta portion. And you can see this is that process where I'm kind of going back and forth. Now, through the magic of a television, I have now completed the entire stenciling process. I used moss and olive here and really added some beautiful greens to the center. And I added some golden yellows to the center of my florals as well. And then I went back to that stencil that kind of creates the shadow layer in the center of the florals. And now I'm adding some enchanted gold right over that stencil on top of the inking that I've already done. Now I'm doing this in kind of a thicker fashion, and that's going to add some dimension to this shimmer relief paste because remember, you can kind of build this up and add dimension with it, or you can put it on in a nice thin layer. You could even add it to the bottom of a die cut with your finger to add it in a really thin layer, and you can get just the shimmer from that. So I've added that relief paste through the stencil and you can see the shine there, and I'm kind of tilting it so that you can see the dimension, but you get just that little bit of raise through that stencil. And I thought using this on a layering stencil set was a really fun way to use these shimmer relief pastes, but we're not done. I allowed that to dry, and then I used the coordinating die set to die cut this image, and then I replaced this stencil that creates the shadows on the petals of the florals over the image. And now I'm adding a little bit of pearl to this. Now, the thing that I found interesting about this, I think I'm answering a text message right here. The thing I found interesting about this is that it really didn't reactivate the inks underneath and pick up that pink ink. I thought it kind of would. I thought you would kind of tint this pearl paste a little pink by going over these pink dye inks, but they really didn't do that. It didn't tend to pick up the ink. Now this, of course, is Altenew Fresh Dye ink, and it's very dry. So keep in mind that if you try it over a different formulation of some other company's dye ink, it may pick up the color, but you'll just have to experiment with this paste along with the dye inks that you're using to see if that kind of affects the way that it dries back. Now, one thing that I did notice was that the extra paste I picked up did have a little bit of pink on it, but I actually suspect that was because I did not clean the stencil really well. And you can see I added this on in kind of a thicker layer to add a little bit more dimension to this stencil layer of the florals. So now that we're done with the element for card number 1, we're going to move on to the element for card number 2. And I'm going to use this new dotted pattern stencil from Altenew. This is brand new this month. And I'm going to do an entire background. But first, I'm going to ink blend my background. So I'm using, again, the Bubblegum Dreams inks. I'm using all 4 colors this time and the large blending brushes from Altenew to create an ombre background. So I'm moving throughout each color. This is the magenta here, one of my favorites. And when it combines with that jazzberry, I just think it's so beautiful. I have this cardstock on my 9x12 sticky mat here from Altenew to hold it in place as I'm adding all of this ink, and it kind of keeps my fingers a little bit cleaner here. But you'll notice that as I'm adding the colors, I'm kind of going back over areas as well, blending those colors together. So if you want a nice smooth blend, you'll just kind of want to go over the seams of the colors per se. Now, once I have that ink blending, I'm going to hold my stencil in place using a little bit of the Altenew satin masking tape. And now I've grabbed the rose gold Shimmer Relief Paste and I'm spreading it all over this dotted pattern stencil that's on top of my blended panel. I will kind of swipe up the extra and place it back into my jar to use again. But once I pull this off, you're going to see all the shine and the dimension that the Shimmer Relief Paste adds to the background. I mean, this thing is blinging, and this rose gold is absolutely beautiful on those Bubblegum Dreams inks. Now for card number 2, I am grabbing another stamp from the Garden Whispers stamp set, and I'm going to use my Stamp Wheel 2.0 to stamp this onto some vellum. I'm going to do some heat embossing. So I've placed my vellum on the sticky mat of the Stamp Wheel 2.0, and I've placed my stamp where I want it to stamp. Then I picked it up with the flip plate. Now I'm adding some anti-static powder tool to my vellum because I am going to do some heat embossing on this, and I only want the embossing powder to stick to the areas that I have added this embossing ink. So I've used the Altenew embossing ink to stamp this stamp onto the vellum, and I'm just using my sleeve to kind of pull down over my hand so I can rub all over that stamp. And then I'll remove my vellum from the Stamp Wheel 2.0, and I'm taking this over and adding some ultrafine white embossing powder over the stamped image. And you're going to see this kind of emerge from this invisible place on the vellum here. I'll tap off the excess, and then I'm going to use my heat tool to melt the embossing powder. You just want to make sure that your embossing powder is shiny, that it doesn't look grainy, and once you've melted it, move on to the next area of the stamp because you can over melt and overheat embossing powder, and then it will lose its shine and its dimension if you do that. So I'm just keeping my heat tool moving. And once I've heat set that, I went ahead and used the coordinating die to die cut this image. And now we're going to do some finish work on our cards. So for card number 1, I'm placing this stamped, stenciled image onto a panel of dark night cardstock using some foam adhesive. And I'm using the Blessed Sentiment, which is in the coordinating die set in this Garden Whispers Craft Your Life project kit. And I'm gluing that right over the top. I've die cut the word blessed from some white cardstock and I've layered it onto some vellum, and I'm just using a little bit of liquid glue behind that vellum to adhere this onto my card front. Once I got it into place, I'm just kind of holding it there and allowing the glue to set up for just a second. And now I'm going to start assembling card number 2. I have a white card base here, and I have trimmed down that ink blended and stenciled background and layered it onto a panel of dark night cardstock. I'm just putting this onto a white card base using some tape runner adhesive from Altenew. And then I've die cut the new Have Faith word die set from Altenew and kind of positioned it over the top of my heat embossed flower. I did do a little offset layering there with the dark night cardstock as well as some white cardstock behind it. And then I just trimmed off the overhang with my scissors. Now for a little finishing touch on the Have Faith card, I grabbed one of these heart enamel dots from the new Bubblegum Dreams set from Altenew, and I placed that over my sentiment. So here's a look at the 2 finished cards today featuring the brand new gorgeous Shimmer Relief Paste from Altenew. I hope you enjoyed this look at these new pastes and kind of seeing them in action. They really are a fun product to use, and I cannot wait to experiment with them more. They're great for stencils and backgrounds like I've done in this card, but they're also great for layering stencils on stamped and ink blended images. If you prefer a lighter, more subtle look, you could always apply these with like a sponge or your finger to get a really light layer over a die cut image as well. I think that would be a great way to use these pastes. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the YouTube description below. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there, or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I'll have that linked below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. Don't forget to check out the video hop that this video is a part of, celebrating this brand new February 2025 release from Altenew. There's sure to be more inspiration and fabulous creators along the hop, and you can find all that information in the YouTube description below. As always, I want to say thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I am so glad you're here. I hope you enjoyed these projects, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here so you don't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the very end. You know, if you've made it this far, you are one of my favorites. To subscribe to my channel, go ahead and click that button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.